There we go. We are now live. Welcome back to the Vermont House Appropriations Committee. Well, that was an exciting little adventure. It's still Thursday, April 13th, 2023. We had a drill, maybe? I don't know if it was practice or a real thing that we needed to evacuate on this incredibly comfortably sunny day. I'm going to start a rumor that somebody over in the government ops pulled a fire alarm, but so we have about 15 minutes. So Sarah, I don't know what we can do with you until we go to lunch. And then we're going to go to the floor at 1. After the floor, come back to the committee room because we have a little rehearsing to do before tonight. And maybe we'll see if you've got time. You have commitments this afternoon in another committee. But we'll see what we can do from there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but
so I don't know if maybe we just have a conversation with you for 15 minutes to help us, or 10 minutes.
Madam Chair, I have a meeting I have to go to in 5 minutes, but I have one quick question.
Okay.
So one of the things that we were talking about when we had the here was, well, when are we going to know more, and when can the committee, when are we going to know more? And one of the points was the September meeting of joint fiscal, because that they have to do an in-depth dive. I'm trying to understand, are these funds, I understand we've been focused on when are they going to be spent, when are they, what's the word?
Obligated?
Obligated, yeah, okay. This in the context of the normal budget process where in the BAA, we see that the Secretary of Administration has decided that a lot of unspent money just goes to carry forward. Mm-hmm. Are these programs subject to, are they 1 year? Everybody's looking at several years, but are they like everything else where they are appropriated for a year and thus if they're not spent, they're carried forward? We'll see this and carry forward.
so I believe that we had language associated with the ARPA State Fiscal Recovery Fund dollars that indicates that the appropriations will carry forward. And so
the line item, they are not carried forward into some new source of
because carry forward, as I understood it, traditionally meant that if it was carried forward, the Secretary of Administration had the freedom, the unique freedom, to reallocate those to other programs, which we had to agree, we had to agree with.
We have to agree with.
In other words, is that going to happen here? And are we going to have the freedom if it turns out that some of these, which have had like 5% of the money has been spent, in 6 months, are we going to have the freedom to reallocate?
So the Secretary of Administration would not be able to reallocate and reappropriate, if you will, these funds without going through the General Assembly.
Okay.
And so you will, I think, have an opportunity as we learn more about the status of these programs and time goes on. If it's a program is, let's say, being underutilized for whatever reason, there will be an opportunity next session likely where we may do reappropriations, if you will, similar to what we just did with the COVID paid leave that was appropriated to the Department of Financial Regulation that we then have reallocated for other purposes, that $10,180,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep.
So that 10 million that we just reallocated in the budget, which we did, it's not finished, it's over there. That 5 and 5, which was for bridge, we moved 5 million to the bridge funding for the state colleges and 5 million, forgetting which, that's all. It was, they were both ARPA eligible places. And anyway, we don't know if that will actually materialize. We need to get, just because we've done it, that's what we think, oh, great, this is going to go right out the door to this, and it doesn't. Thank you, Representative Mahali. Have a good meeting. Representative Holcomb has a question.
So I looked at one just as a way of understanding the process. And when you think about the air quality grants, for example, for schools, part of the challenge in state government is first there is a statutorily prescribed granting process. And then once those grants are cut months later, there's a statutorily defined competitive bidding process. So there's a long lag time. All that money has been allocated. None of it has been expended. What they're now doing is competitively bidding the grants. And what I'm hearing is that this unrolled at the same time as all kinds of big grants. And the problem is the workforce issue. And I wondered if anyone is following, investigating, keeping track of what happens when we're simultaneously trying to contract for the same scarce pool of labor to do construction and renovation or house building or air grants at the same time. And how is that going to affect, and is there sort of a rainfall, whatever, what was the? Waterfall, that's what it is. Like in terms of who's going to be high priority and who's going to end up losing out on those bids. Is anyone tracking that?
I don't believe anybody is tracking it. It has definitely been a conversation that's happened in the context of the capital budget and, how much money do we bond? And as you know, there's also general funds being transferred into the Capital Infrastructure Reserve Fund as part of our budget construct being proposed. And so I don't think anyone is actively tracking it, but it's a active conversation because we are hitting up the same contractors for multiple different projects in multiple different sectors.
And I might add to that, there's not like one entity, because that doesn't even exist. But things like in corrections and institutions, they were very well aware when talking with them that when they monitor the projects that, that we've done years ago, put out in the capital bill, we'll go to bonding for this X project, right? It's been 2 years, they still can't move that. And so it's been 2 years, which is why when we get the bill this year, we think, oh my God, we got to do this right now because it's so needed. They haven't moved a lot of what was 2 years ago. They are backed up. So we go, you know what? We can still do because we need to put projects in the pipeline. But the truth is,
Well, the question is different.
ARPA's going to be way different than that.
But it's like a bridge project near us, they had to bid twice because there were 0 bidders the first time around. And so the question is, for some of these, if it's not a big project or whatever, they may not actually be able to execute. And it would be good to be anticipating that with enough time to address.
So that would be like within the Agency of Transportation, within the Agency of Human Services, within the Agency of ANR. So they're monitoring their own work and at least in transportation world, you can see where the bids are coming in. And we saw earlier on, the bids were coming in at twice the level of what we had budgeted for. And no one was bidding, one person was bidding on it and so projects didn't get done. And sometimes that's why we had a lot of one-time dollars or carry forward because of what we laid out there was not getting totally finished. But ARPA dollars is going to be different because this is a whole different ballgame than our general fund piece.
Yeah, the ARPA money that I remember having concerns about when I was in Commerce, maybe even a couple of years ago, was the ARPA money was put toward, the capital improvement thing was supposed to be transformational, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the point of it is that there's a bunch of different things that we put money for. And the first year, of course, we had a deadline like December, so we had to push it out. And then there was a lot of discussion of should we be more particular and more prescriptive and who can apply and what do we want? And we had 1 or 2 projects that just didn't have any applicants. I mean, maybe like 5 applicants and we had like $5 million. I mean, it was like, it just didn't get the response that we hoped for. So did we have to go back and change the criteria? Do we have to remove some criteria? What were we not getting that money was not getting applied for so it could be used for things that we knew were needed to be done. And so we ended up reallocating that to other things that had like multiple, way overprescribed. So that's the kind of stuff that I think that's what ACCD did with a lot of these workforce development, helping with,
he didn't get it.
hospitality, all these different employers.
So it's one of the things that discovering not only the 10 million, but now the million is, okay, we need to before, or at least has been my position as just a member here or in the building, to say that I would welcome an opportunity that before we leave town, like in May, soon, that we have some sort of better eyes-on structure instead of waiting until we get back in January or December to start this conversation. So that I feel is in the works of like, what would that look like? There's already government accountability group, there's the joint fiscal committee, and what would be the verbiage that we would need to establish that says these people will engage from now until ARPA money is done with this kind of oversight. We need an ARPA czar. And Sarah doesn't know. But, so that's where I'm hoping that we get to before we leave here in May, that we have established that. We're starting, we're the first of this conversation happening in this, well, maybe not the whole building, but to be thinking about it in the terms that we are right now looking at it. And then we've got Representative Bloomley and then Representative Tolina.
I have two questions, one of which is probably very, well, quick. Does this ARPA funding all expire at the same time?
Yes,
Okay, all 2026.
yes.
Okay. And then,
Thank God.
secondly, I got an email from somebody in my district who said, I need to get access. I want to get access to the COVID relief money for employers. I, had somebody that was out, her whole family was out for a month. And the portal has been closed for 9 months, I guess. Tristan was telling me, and they can't tell me this is DFR, can't tell me when it's actually going to be open. And that's 5 million.
September 23 is the ending of the applications for that program too.
Is that, so I'm not quite sure what to do with that information, but it really worries me that we have not been able.
So my comment picks up right here.
Good.
I actually think before you had mentioned ACCD coming in, I actually think hearing from our Commerce Committee first would be really helpful because on the Commerce Committee adjacent ARPA stuff, they did get updates on everything as far as I know. And then if
We've
you walk
invited
us
them.
through, yeah.
They're Wednesday, because Tuesday they're out at a field trip all day, so we moved to Wednesday.
Okay, it's just like they actually did a lot of this pre-work around, because some of these programs got funded again. So they are really clear on what the status was. Healthcare looked at the nursing programs. So there's some information that's known, and like the DFR program that we pulled the 10 million from, they rewrote some of the policy and worked with them to try to ensure that they can get past this moment. And so
To Representative Holcomb's point, they're finding the pin places, but who's saying, let's look at all of it? And that's where I'm getting at, like, how are we gonna systematically approach looking at all of this?
Isn't JFO supposed to look at that? For some reason, I remember that if it didn't get spent, JFO, the money went back and JFO had a role in this.
Joint fiscal committee?
JFC,
I mean, one of those, I thought,
the Joint Fiscal Committee.
Probably.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, ACCD is a small agency, and they gave reports all the time as to what their status was. It was easy for Commerce because ACCD is a small agency. They were given a lot of money for a lot of different programs, but they were always on top of it.
Right.
You know, human services or some other places, healthcare, I don't know. It may be hard, it may be harder for some people.
So they may be on top of it. I'm not even accusing them. They may be on top of it, but when it doesn't happen, we're the ones that have to be the.
Yeah, they knew that and they came
And then
back
come
and
back.
said that.
Right.
This hasn't worked the way we designed it.
Right.
We got to do something because we didn't get any applicant or not enough when we have all this money.
I don't think that's happened this year with this money,
It ha-
the
maybe
ARPA
this
money.
year.
I think you're thinking of
Last
the previous round of money, but not this round of money we haven't
Yeah.
done anything. And this is the one
The
we're concerned
CR
about.
the CRF
because it's
dollars
not
are
a lot.
done.
Well, it happened the second time, 2021.
Yeah.
It did happen.
Yeah, that was the CFR money.
So when we heard from Douglas, when he was here too, he was saying that they're, from his words, if I'm not going to get this verbatim, but he's like, they're just getting their hands around all of it and all of the levers and checking it with age. It's like, great. So they're doing that internally. But what I've asked him is like, what is our role? So that depending on what you're finding, that we're up to speed with you. So you're not coming in January or in August and all of a sudden we're like, what? What program? Who does what? We need to be in step with them so we can respond informationally. Otherwise, what I think it was said in this room, that come February, we'll be knee deep in the budget again. And all of a sudden, we're going to have this like
We have $400 million.
frantic $400 million that we need, and we're going to be,
To something that's going to work, because that's the
Right.
other problem, is that we
Right.
can obligate, but if it isn't going to work,
it's not
we have to
thoughtful.
know by next December 2024 that it's not going to work, so it can be reallocated somewhere else where it will work.
Right.
If we wait till January of 25, we're too late on that.
Or we may run
Goes
into
back.
walls on infrastructure.
It's just too much money to mess around with.
Right. Anyway, so we just want to be good team players. We want to be ready to take the ball when it's kicked to us so we can run and score.
We go grab the ball if we don't get it.
We're going to go grab the ball. Oh, we're going to take them off the sidelines. Wait a minute. Anyway, I watched a little too much Ted Lasso. Yeah. All right, Sarah, anything else that we could benefit from? And it's a little bit after 12. And
I don't think so. If you have additional questions, please reach out to Maria or I and we can help you track answers as things pop up.
does this make sense too? I mean, as much as I love this spreadsheet, starting from the budget last year, Act 185.
Yep,
In there's the G section.
yep.
And looking at, at least in the language that we're used to seeing, to look at that, what we did, and start from there going, how does that translate into
Yeah,
this? Yeah.
yeah. And at some point, we need a spreadsheet that has like more of a narrative of what the project is with the accounting. And so I think that's going to be our goal as we, move through the coming months and over the summer and fall.
Right. That's a homework assignment.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
all right,
All right.
yay. Just when we think we're gonna have lots to do.
yes.
Okay, Aaron, we can go offline, we can go to lunch, and we'll see you after 4.